Hello, and welcome to Monday Musings with Sarah. I'm Sara R. Turnquis, multi published clean historical romance author, and your Monday silliness. That's what I'm going to call it. And here is Cindy, my producer and my organizational manager. And of course, there's Blue. Hi, Blue. He's on the Blue cam. He's so fun. What he doesn't know is that there is another dog going to join us today. Not on the live stream. Maybe we'll see him next week. But we have another family member that is coming to join us today. Another puppy, and I'm super excited about it. But we'll give Blue a break. Today, I want to talk about the importance of replenishment and rest. And one of the things that I've heard before that I think is very interesting is we retreat to advance. And I think that is very important because when we hear the word retreat, we often think that we're pulling back in order to surrender. And sometimes that's what happens in battle. But we also see this need to retreat in order to continue forward because we as human beings need rest. And I think it's very interesting. Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith wrote a book called Sacred Rest. And I learned in that book that there are several different types of rest that we need. Things such as she has 7 different types of rest, such as sensory rest, creative rest, physical rest, mental rest. Physical rest, we always think of sleep, and that's part of it, but that's not the only kind of rest that we need, not even physically. We recently went on a trip, even my producer came with us to the panhandle of Florida. And I am not a beach girl. I like the sound of the waves and the look of the ocean and all that kind of fun stuff. But I'm more of a mountains kind of girl. So I took the opportunity to have just times of rest and respite, spending time in the little house that we had rented, um, just reading or even just having downtime. And I had a lot of downtime while we were there. I think I only went to the beach one time and I stayed in the car and looked at the ocean, rolled the window down, heard the ocean. That was great. So I had some physical rest and I also had some really good emotional rest. I have a sweet friend that lives in the area where we were, and so I got to see her. I don't get to see her often, but when we do, we have such a good time together. And she is such that's such a sweet relationship, and it brings rest to my soul in a very unique way. Kind of like how spending downtime with Cindy gives me sweet rest as well, emotionally. But there was an opportunity for my family, Greg and I and the kids, to go over and spend time with this friend's family. And that was just so sweet. My kids had fun. They talked about it. My husband had fun with her husband. We just had the best time. And that was just a really good emotional rest that I was so in need of. As some of you know, if you're following Monday Musings, you know that I spent time in Arizona going to a conference, which was kind of like a retreat, and then doing research, which I had intended to be more like a retreat. What you probably don't know, if you haven't been following along, and I've been off social media for a little bit, was that I had altitude sickness while I was there. We went from Phoenix to Flagstaff to the Grand Canyon and then back to Flagstaff. And I really struggled with the altitude sickness. And so it wasn't as much restful as I had intended. And I didn't get as much put into my research time as I wanted. I got what I needed, but I would have liked to just sit in it some more. However, that's the way things go sometimes. That's one of the challenges we have with expectations, right? Our expectations are up here, reality's here, and this gap here, I call it disappointment. So I am working on holding those expectations with open hands because we're going to have expectations of our time. It's not reasonable to think that we as humans aren't going to have some level of expectation. I think the point of handling handling it well for me is accepting that those expectations will probably not be met in some ways, probably will be met in other ways, but giving myself grace, giving the situation grace, and giving that gap some grace, holding those expectations, as I said, with open hands, ready for them to change a little bit. So I talked about the physical rest in Dustin and the emotional rest, but something else, and I don't want this to turn into a commercial. That's not what Monday Musings are about. But I really do want to share a resource with you that has given me some good spiritual rest. Cindy and I have been doing a study together on the side called the Love Your Life Project. And this is what it looks like. It's 40 days to prioritize. It's by Karen Eman and Ruth. I'm going to try the name Schwenk. It's a little bit of an interesting name to try when you've never heard it said out loud. All my reader friends know what I'm talking about. We're always saying words that are complicated that we've never heard in our entire life, but we've read them many, many times. So this book has really been interesting in the sense that we'll do a lesson in here. There's like 40 lessons, so 40 days, and we try to do it during the week and take the weekends to catch up or to rest. But it's amazing how many cross sections there have been in my life between the things that they talk about in this book and then outside sources. So I really see God working through this book in this season for me. This is the right season, the right time, the right place, the right study. And when those things intersect, it is just wonderfully restful for my spirit. I did think it was interesting as I was writing down the things I wanted to touch on today that I talked about physical rest, emotional rest, and spiritual rest. And those are actually the three threads to each character that you need to develop. So touching on my writerly side a little bit, I was able to touch on these three aspects of my own character, my own self. But as an aside, when you are developing a character, most people are aware of the external, the physical, and the internal, emotional journey of the character. However, as Christians, we also realize that there's a spiritual side to everyone. And so knowing that ahead of time, when you're looking at your character development, it's important that you look at that spiritual arc as well. How is the character changing spiritually, even if it's just a little bit or a lot? So developing that plot arc, the external journey, the emotional arc, the internal journey, and then the spiritual arc as well creates a very complex layered character that is more three-dimensional. So at any rate, I do want to stress for my writer friends how important it is to just stop for a minute. Even if you take 10 minutes out of your day, put your phone down, go into a different room, and just be quiet or think on your story. I heard something the other day that I thought was interesting is that a lot of us say that we have these aha moments in the shower. Well, one of the things about being in the shower is we're not bombarded by technology. It's just us and our thoughts, and our brain has time to get bored. It has time to wander, and that's when it does some of its best creative work. So my fellow creatives, let's make a point this week, at least one day, to take 10 minutes. Even my non-creative friends, we're all creative in one way, though. Some way is what I mean. We're all creative in some way because we are reflecting the character of God as his creation, and he is a very creative being. So let's take some moments. Let's take 10 minutes one time today, or 5 minutes a couple times this week. Not today, this week. A couple times this week, or 10 minutes at some point this week, and just sit in the quietness. It may be uncomfortable. It may be relaxing. I don't know where you are in your journey, but let's take that time and let our brain do its stuff. So let's check in with Blue. I've been talking for a while, but
he's having no trouble resting.
He is. He's letting his brain do its creative work while he's resting. That's what I'm thinking. So Blue is resting up for what's coming later today when we get our new family member. But if you have any questions about rest or anything like that or character development, please drop them in the chat. I'll be checking these comments somewhat throughout the next week. But please be patient because I don't always get to the comments right away. All right. That's it for Sarah's Musings today. I hope you find rest this week. I hope you find things that are just filling your heart to overflowing. And I will see you next time.